So when you're buying a share and a yearling, what exactly are you looking for? Well, today it's going to be a bit of an investigation video on how to pick the next Winx, which is likely not going to happen ever. But anyway, we'll do it. We'll look at stuff like how the horse looks, physique-wise, how it walks, the pedigree, the value side of things as well, and when exactly to buy a share in a racehorse. And I'm no expert, as I usually say in many of my yearling preview videos. It's just a passion of mine, so enjoy the video. We're going to delve into horse looks first. So for the horse looks, we're going to start by looking at the head of the horse. Now, this is a bit of an education video, as I've already said, as well as an investigation video. There's going to be a few people that are here to be educated, that'll be watching this video, thinking to themselves, well, how does a good-looking horse head improve a horse's speed or stamina? It just makes no sense. Well, I've written down 3 notes here on my little Microsoft Word little script that I'm going to use. So we'll start with the first dot point I've got, and the first one is they need to have a smooth sloping head. So we're going to take a look at one of the horses we part own called Flying Mascot, and you can see in its yearling photo it has a smooth sloping head. This just improves, or doesn't improve, but means that the airway structure is, good or just normal, which is what most yearlings, if you're looking for a yearling, it's what most yearlings have, but it's what most horses have in general. But there's the occasional horse that doesn't have this smooth head, and we're going to take a look at a 3-year-old filly, a done deal filly trained by Mike Moraney that we definitely do not part own. And you can see that after the nose band, its head sort of protrudes out, and they call this in the racing or horse world a dished-faced horse. That's just what they call it. And this sort of means that their airway structure is affected, their nasal passages are sort of narrowed. So we're looking for a smooth head in a yearling. The next one is the eye of a horse. If you can see the white of the eye of a horse, it usually means they're a little bit feisty and just a hot-headed horse to handle. The only one I can remember off the top of my head that had a white eye was Utzon, but it was one of a kind. It was a white horse, so it's probably more common in those horses. But I've seen a couple of the Magic Millions going through this year that you can definitely see the white of their eyes, and it'll be a negative because it'll mean they take more time to mature, especially if you want to buy a share in a racehorse that's going to get up and going as a 2-year-old. It's just going to take more time for them to mature and develop. If you can't see the whites of their eyes and they're just all the pupil, then it's usually pretty good. It means they're pretty calm, or most likely to be pretty calm. And the last one is the nostril. So we're going to take a look back at Flying Mascot. You can see she's got a pretty wide nostril, and this is beneficial because obviously through a wider nostril you can take in more oxygen during the run, which means you can get more oxygen to the working muscles that need it the most, and that can help a horse's stamina. So you can probably see out there, I can't probably see that well, but Winx, she has a wide nostril. And obviously that's why she was one of the reasons why she was so good. So that's what we're looking for, the head of a horse. It took me 3 minutes to explain that. Next, we'll move on to the shoulder. I've also got 3 dot points down here. So we'll start with the first one. 2-year-old runners or two-year-old up-and-comers. If you want to buy a share in a 2-year-old that's going to get up and going early, it's really beneficial that they have a big shoulder, which allows for a bigger and stronger stride and great extension of the forearm, or greater extension of the forearm, I should say. We're taking a look at the photo. The horse you're seeing right now is a horse called Bold Bastille, who you may have heard of. Was a very good 2-year-old. You can see it's got a massive shoulder. This is beneficial probably for all yearlings, but especially if you want to have one that gets up and going early, you want a big shoulder. It just means that they're going to be stronger than their own age group, and the bigger and stronger stride allows them to withstand the forces of racing better than others. So the big shoulder is beneficial for the 2-year-old horses. If they don't have a big shoulder, it probably means they're going to peak as a 3 and 4-year-old prospect. The second dot point is the shoulder angle needs to be sloping at a 45-degree angle to allow for optimum stride length, which means they can stay sound for longer and have better shock absorption. So I'll touch on the Paston soon, which is another part of the horse, but they're sort of a bit similar. I'll touch on that later. The query, if they don't have a shoulder angle of 45 degrees, is having an upright shoulder. And an upright shoulder means an angle of in between, I'd say 60 to 90 degrees. 90 degrees would be pretty dangerous, but anywhere between 60 and 90 degrees is what is usually classified as an upright shoulder. And this can see things such as a high knee action, muscle stiffening within the shoulder, increased concussion, greater risk of injury, and reduced range of movement. So this is why, and again, as I said, I'll touch on the Paston a little bit later, but the shoulder angle sloping at 45 degrees is vitally important. Next, I'm going to touch on the near foreleg, which is the leg that's closest to the camera on the yearling photo side, that's towards the front of the horse. I've got 3 dot points for that as well. So the first one is, you should be able to draw a straight line up from the back of the horse's heel, and it should be able to pass through the center of the horse's knee and through the center of the horse's forearm. That is what's classified as the most optimal near foreleg conformation feature of a horse. If you can draw a straight line through those things, it usually means they're pretty sound. Even if you get a ruler or something and hold it next to a photo of the yearling, you'll be able to sort of find out. So if these things don't line up, it usually means the horse is less sound. What I've got written down here for that dot point is straight line starting from back of the hoof, should run through center of knee and center of forearm. So that's basically what I've said. There's a massive query which I've read in a few books. Yeah, I know, I read. No, I don't. I don't read. But a few books about what to look for in yearlings. A lot of trainers, especially Richard and Will Friedman, are big on the back of, if the horse is back in the knee, it's the biggest query or the thing they dislike the most about a yearling, if they have that conformation fault. And that's where, if you draw the line up from the back of the heel to the forearm, the knee is behind the line. So that means they're back in the knee, and that can obviously mean, if you think about it, less range of motion and a poorer stride length, which means they're obviously less likely to run faster. It's also good for a yearling to have a strong forearm. It's just like a muscle, right? If you've got bigger biceps, you're likely to lift more weights or something like that for humans. But for horses, strong forearm means a stronger leg to be able to withstand the forces of racing a little bit stronger. Now we get to the Pastons. So the Paston angle should also be a 45 degree angle. That's the optimal angle. And the Paston angle on 99% of occasions matches the shoulder angle of that particular horse. So if you're struggling to find the angle of the shoulder, the angle of the Paston usually matches the angle of the shoulder. You want the Paston to be not too long and not too short. This will be pretty hard to pick up if you've hardly looked at yearling photos before. It just comes with experience. The way you pick up features and faults is you look at enough yearlings over your lifetime that you can one day go or differentiate yearlings between each other. So yeah, you don't want them too long or too short. If they have long Pastons that are too long, tendons can overextend and it will increase stress on the ligaments. And having a short Paston decreases stride length. The horse is also likely to be less sound if they have an upright Paston, which is what I said before, maybe 60 to 90 degree angle of the Paston. They're less likely to be sound and have a decreased stride length. So you can see the difference between picture A and picture B. Picture A is a good sloping Paston, sort of 45 degree angle, and B is quite upright. So we'd want to be following the Paston of photo number A, letter A, I'm going mad. And if the Paston is shorter than 45 degrees, it can also mean a query, because it means the fetlock during movement is closer to the ground. And if that scrapes the ground, it can do some serious damage. So that's why it's probably important for the angle to be between 45 and 60 degrees. If you're looking for the Paston, it's usually easier to find on the near foreleg because that's closest to the camera. for the yearling photo, and also it's what all the experts go off. So 45 to 60 degrees is optimal. Shorter than that, bit of a query. Longer than 60 degrees, bit of a query. That's a Paston. Now we'll move on to the horse's back. If the horse's back is shorter or a short back, it means they're likely to be a sprinter. A long back means they're likely to be a stayer. Usually, I prefer the horses with a short back because that means they're strong. It's more common for long-backed horses to not be able to carry saddle weight as well as a short, strong-backed horse. So that's why I prefer the short backs, because they're only, if you're looking at yearlings, they're only 1-year-olds, so they'll be able to extend over a period of time as well with growth. And you can see the difference here: a short-backed horse, a sprinting type, this picture by Stay Inside, and a longer-backed horse, a yearling going through this year's Magic Millions sale, a Cool as a Beal. So now we'll take a look at the near hind leg. Same with the near foreleg. You should be able to draw a line down from the last point of the buttock down, and it should pass through the hock of the horse and the fetlock of the near hind leg. If it does that, if they all line up equally, then it means their conformation is pretty good. If the point of buttock, you draw a line down from there and the horse is out the back with the hock and the fetlock, then it usually means that they'll take a bit more time to mature and can progress to a staying type of horse. If you draw a line from the point of buttock down and the hock and fetlock are underneath the horse, it's usually, it is worse. Usually means that they're either a sprinter or just not fast enough at all, because they can't collect themselves as well during movement. So ideally, they should all line up together. If they're out the back, it usually means they're going to be a bit more of a stayer. If they're underneath themselves, it's a little bit worse, and they're either going to be a sprinter or not fast enough at all. Some other things to look out for is the horse needs to have a strong gaskin. So a gaskin is, if we look at this horse here, which is going through the Magic Millions for 2025, Home Affairs Unassailed. The gaskin is I don't know how to describe it, on the near hind leg, which is what we just took a look at. It's sort of just above the hock, that muscle there. If it's strong, it usually is a good sign. And the other thing as well, John McArdle told me this, but he hates, as I said earlier, the Freedmans don't like back in the knee. McArdle doesn't like weak hocks. So weak hocks means the horse is obviously less likely to withstand the forces of racing as well as what it can. And the other thing that I've picked up on that I don't really like is lean or skinny horses. So especially looking at yearlings, if you can see their rib cage, I think that's a poor sign. That's just what I've found. I haven't seen anybody else talk about this, but I've just found that if you can see the rib cage of a horse and the bones are sort of not sticking out, but you can see them clear, then it usually means that the horse is a little bit underdeveloped and will take some time, or just may not be good at all. Also, when you're looking at the front and the back of a horse, they should be able. The ideal conformation is that you should be able to draw a line straight up and down the front and hind leg, and you can see what I'm talking about through these photos and explanations. So I picked out 2 random horses from the 2021 Magic Millions Gold Coast yearling sale for us to analyse and compare and take a look at, to hopefully increase your knowledge of how to look at a yearling. So we're going to look at the first one. It's a schnitzel out of the mare Perfect Fit. This was picked at random. So what I can see from this horse is that it's slightly upright in terms of its shoulder and its Paston angle. It's a tall horse. It's got a long back length, so immediately I'm thinking, well, this horse can probably get over a trip and it'll take a bit of time to mature. Its near hind leg is good, but it's slightly sickle-hocked, and sickle-hocked means the hock is sticking further out backwards than what the fetlock is. It's got a strong gaskin, a good eye, so I thought when I looked at this horse first it might cost maybe $180,000 to $200,000. No, it actually got bought for $725,000. Its race name was Made to Fit. I hadn't looked at its race record before looking at the horse, so when I looked at the horse I thought it might have gone It might have gone to the races its first start as a late 2-year-old, and I looked at its form, and its first start was June of next year, which is a late 2-year-old. So I felt pretty good about myself. I was spot on there with that sort of yearling analysis. Now I'll move on to the comparative horse, which is actually from book 2. It was only bought for about $40,000, and you may have heard of its name, Red Sun Sensation. It was picked at complete random, but I picked out probably one of the best horses that came out of book 2 ever of a Magic Millions sale. So what I could gather from this, before I looked at the horse's name and all that, I looked at the yearling photo first. It's got a good head, a bit of a shorter back than the first one, a shorter shoulder. So we were talking about a big shoulder is what you need for an up-and-going 2-year-old. It's got a bit of a shorter shoulder, strong gaskin, and same as the last one, it's slightly sickle-hocked. So it's a slight query. So I think this horse will get up and going a bit earlier than what the first horse we took a look at would. So I looked at its race record, and its first start was in the April of next year, which is 2 months before the first yearling we looked at got up and going. So I was right again. So this analysis that I've given to you today of what to look for in horse looks, at least for these 2 yearlings that we've looked at, has worked. Now we'll move on to how the horse walks. I'm still learning about this, so my knowledge is not as finished as probably what it could be, but when you're looking at the horse, if they stride out longer, it means they're more likely to be a stayer. If they stride shorter, they're likely to be a sprinting type. You can see when I did my most recent Mornington vlog, horse number 3 in this scenario, it's got a real short stubby stride compared to the horse number 4, who was my pick of the yard in that race, which managed to win. I don't like short stubby strides. It means even if they're more likely to be a sprinter, they're less likely to cover the ground as well, even for a sprinting type. So that's a negative. Sort of the stride that number 4 had, the stride length, that's sort of optimal. Another point I've got here is when you're looking at the front and back of a horse walking, there should be a little gap between the legs to avoid contact and the risk of injury. Sometimes you can see horses doing like sort of soccer stepovers, and that is called winging, and that can impact the fluidity of movement. So that's sort of a bit of a negative, but you need a little gap in between the 2 legs, because if they're too close together, they can sort of collide with each other during movement, and that can cause injury. And if they're too wide, the legs are too wide between each other, it means there's more stress on the inside of the foot, which can also impact movement and potentially cause injury. I want to talk about oversteps. So oversteps is where the back foot, the back hoof, lands further than where the front hoof took off from. So you can pick it up through this yearling walking here. A massive overstep can mean a bigger stride, but it can also mean the horse is unbalanced. If you want the horse to be well balanced, it's when the back hoof lands exactly where the front hoof took off from, but most commonly the back hoof will land slightly in front of where the front hoof took off. Most commonly what you'll see in yearlings, it's when the back hoof lands slightly in front of where the front hoof took off from, but it does mean they're well balanced if the back hoof lands where the front hoof took off from in the exact position. If it's a massive overstep, they're probably more unbalanced and more likely to be unbalanced, and it can be a negative. Now we'll move on to the pedigree side of things. I'm more interested in the horse looks probably than the pedigree, but if you're looking for a sprinter, you want the horse to be by a sprinting sire. If you're looking for a stayer, you want the horse to be by a staying sire. The dam, usually you look at how many foals they've had to race, how many winners they've had. I don't mind it if the dam hasn't had a foal to race yet. I just think you're getting a bit more value, especially if the horse looks good. The dam sire is also pretty important, so you can just search up on Google, say Capitalist, the sire Capitalist. You just search up Capitalist breed net. You should be able to click the first one, and it comes up with obviously the stallion. And if you click on Nicks, you can see how the dam sires have done. Usually if the dam sire of a yearling that you like is on that BreedNet page, that's had some good success, that cross between the sire and the dam sire. So you can see the wins, you can see the most successful horse, you can see the stakes winners. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And I want to finish off on when you should buy a share in a yearling. So if you don't want to spend too much, probably just go to My Racehorse. It's only $100 to buy a share, a 0.0000001% share of a horse. I'm not sure how many zeros there are, but anyway, something like that. If you want to buy like a 2.5 or a 5% share but don't want to spend too much, then, and it's just for a bit of fun, then I'd say go to whichever state you live in. Just go to like a rural or local trainer and look at on their website the horses they've got available, and just follow the same steps we've looked at in this video to try and pick your next Winx or Black Caviar, which is probably not likely because they're two superstars, but anyway, could happen. If you have money and you want to spend big, then go for your life. Go to Gay Waterhouse's website, go to Kira Ma's website, anything like that, and always try and be value hunting. If you see two horses next to each other on for shares available and they look basically the exact same, one's 90,000 and one was bought for 270,000, obviously the 90,000 will represent more value, and if there's anything wrong with it, there might be something wrong with it from the vets that you might not know about. So it's probably important to talk to a trainer or ring up whoever's on the contact us page to see that or hear the full story about that yearling. But anyway, that was a bit of a spiel. Hopefully you guys learned something off that. If you want me to, look at any horses or yearlings that you guys might be interested in buying a share in, then just leave the lot number down in the comments below and I'll try my best to get around to it. But anyway guys, thanks for watching. Until next video, bye for now.